Hi there everyone, welcome along to another video. It's really good to see you again, and today I'm going to be taking a closer look at a fairly new manufacturer, but certainly this is one that I've not had a chance to take a really good look at some of their models, and I've been lent 2 packs of wagons. So without further ado, I'm sure you'll be interested as well. Let's take a look. Well, I'm really pleased to have been given these as a loaner to take a closer look at. I saw the Accurascale stand at Alexandra Palace Model Railway Exhibition, and I was actually very impressed by what I saw. So it's great to now have the opportunity to take a closer look at these wagons. And what I've been loaned are the HUO hopper wagons. And I'm just really pleased to see a great variety of hopper wagons coming through from a variety of different manufacturers. So we don't have to struggle on just with the humble 16-ton mineral wagon. We've got a variety of different wagons. And these particular wagons, I was actually surprised to learn that they were quite long-lived. These were some of the last unbraked wagons to run on Britain's railways, lasting right through until the late 1980s. So they're eminently suitable for a whole host of different eras. Originally built in the main by British Rail Engineering Limited at Shildon Wagon Works, although some of them were built elsewhere. These were part of Britain's sort of standardisation and modernisation of the wagons. They inherited an awful lot of wooden wagons from the Big Four constituents, and really I think a lot of them were on their last legs, having been run to death through the Second World War in the aid of the war effort. So it was quite imperative that Britain modernised its rolling stock, and these were some of the first wagons to come out and kind of kicked off the concept of the merry-go-round, the block trains for carrying things like household coal. Now, the boxes that these come in, they're a little bit different from what I've seen from other manufacturers, and actually probably a little bit more reminiscent of the boxes that Helgen locomotives come in. And we have this sort of plastic slip case which protects the corners so you don't get that shelf wear and digging. I've not seen that on any other manufacturer's products. And what we have is this almost sort of like a sexy black with these line drawings of the wagons, which actually do work quite well. You get a very clear indication of what the wagon looks like, even if you don't see the actual wagon itself. And you can see there, British Railways 24.5-ton HOP24 stroke HUO hopper wagons. And I'm going to look on the end. I've got 2 sets of these here, so I'm going to hold both of those up. So they're the same wagons from Accurascale, but we've got, let's have a look, we've got set J and set L. There are a number of different ones available to suit liveries from all through the lifespan of these wagons. And I believe that we've got, just looking at, livery NCB Onllwyn Colliery, and Onllwyn was it was part of the old branch that used to go up past Craignorse up to, I think, Brecon, the Great Western Line, and it's actually an area that I'm very familiar with because I spent a lot of time growing up around there. It's where my grandparents are from. So Onllwyn was a coal concentration point and colliery which I was, driven past so many times. So it's nice to actually see some of these wagons. And this is actually, I know I said that late 80s was when they lasted to on Britain's railways, on British Rail, but some of these went on and had further life as internal users, and one of these places was the Onllwyn plant. So I think they lasted through until at least the early 1990s. The other set that I've got up here, it says BR Tops Grey. So that is actually the perfect period for me. That is very much the period that I'm interested in. So anyway, enough about me talking about a little bit of the background and the history of these wagons. Let's get inside this packaging and take a closer look. So inside the plastic slipcase, we've got a heavy-duty cardboard box, and like I said, very reminiscent of the Helgen locomotive boxes. But then we can see, once we get down inside, we've got the 3 wagons laid out on this side underneath a plastic, sort of like a 2-part blister thing, and we get this actually quite an extensive sheet here with the history and a photograph of some of the wagons, and they do look really nice there with the sort of subtle weathering that nature provides, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit as I go through the review. But then we've got a side view. It's actually the same image that's on the box, so you can see there. And then if we turn that over, I do quite like this, because you get a lot of people who moan about the cost of wagons, but this shows just how many individual parts are going into this model. This is not a simple model. Far from it. The amount of attention to detail there to actually build up this wagon from the factory, it's almost like looking at a high quality kit, but the assembly and the painting has been taken care of for you. So I do like that, and it does address a lot of the armchair critics going, oh, they're really expensive for a simple wagon. This is not a simple wagon. There's a lot of thought and attention gone into this. Right, I'm going to put that to one side, and I'm just going to put the other set to one side as well. We're going to come back to that and have a look at the alternative livery. The base wagons themselves are pretty much the same as far as I'm aware. So let's just take that out. And these 2 parts, they don't just sort of fall out. They've got like a push-to-fit dimple in 2 places. So and it's actually quite securely in there. So these aren't going to come apart in transit accidentally. And then this is our first look at these wagons. So I'm just going to get all 3 out. And they're protected by this, it's actually very soft, slippery plastic as well, which works wonders just to stop them from rubbing in transit on the slightly harder plastic of the packaging. And you can see there, first impressions, you can see all of those separate details that were shown on that exploded diagram, especially below the sole bar there. We've got these, I think that's like a foot step to be able to climb up for inspection, maintenance, and probably even to climb up. And with these handrails on the end, a member of staff could peer into the hopper just for simple things like seeing if it was loaded or not, I suppose. But then we've also got these very delicate ribs down the side, and as we saw, those are separately applied detailing pieces. That really does work well. Rather than being one single moulding, we've got all of this intricate detail that would be impossible on a single moulding to represent. And that is really, really nice. Also, we get almost a much more scale thickness of the wagon. It seems to have been, by being made with these separate ribs, they've been enabled to kind of get it more towards a scale thickness of the plastic. I know we've seen on a lot of wagons from other manufacturers that just by the limitations of the manufacturing process, the sides get a little bit too thick, and sometimes that shows up on some of the detail. That doesn't seem to be the case here. We've got this flange around the top, but you can see there the indentation is, I can feel that's quite a way in, which means that the actual thickness of the sides of the wagon, even though they've been moulded in plastic, is a lot closer to a scale thickness. We can see down there inside we've got these unloading chutes at the bottom. They're pretty accurately represented, but it says to me that this wagon is screaming out for a bit of weathering and maybe a coal load. I could really see these being really brought out to the fore with an application of coal dust and maybe even a bit of a rust wash on the inside as well with a bit of coal dust, just to bring out these wagons, because these These are amazingly clean, obviously presented here in ex-works condition, and they're the sort of wagon that would have been workaday wagons and wouldn't have lasted looking like this in real life. And actually there's a video from a friend of mine, Ollie Turner, on YouTube, who's done a weathering video to be able to weather wagons very similar to these, and I think he does a really, really good job. And I can't weather these because they're loaners, and I think I'll get in a lot of trouble if I went gung-ho on these. But I'm going to try and find a link to that video and put it down in the description below. And certainly, if you're interested in getting a set of these and weathering them up, that's a good starting point to get some tips on doing that. In terms of the tampo printing, it's nice and sharp, and we've got a similar level of detail to what we saw on the Hornby X LNER hoppers in terms of all of this maintenance data sheets and stuff. And we've got some, I really struggle with my eyesight, it has to be said. I'm going to have to look into why. But there's like a yellow over the grey lettering in there, and again looks really nice and sharp. We've got the tops code HUO, which would have been applied to these wagons from around 1974 onwards. But it's okay to mix and match with some of the slightly earlier liveries, because a lot of them did persist for a number of years after the supposed re-lettering of these wagons. Just the way it was. These wagons would have been run until they needed works attention, and even then it was probably a case of stenciling them up when the staff could be bothered. The actual sole bars on these are very, very fine. It's moulded in this sort of satiny matte stroke slight gloss finish to the plastic, which we talked about on the Hornby Drummond 700 class model, which a lot of the manufacturers are using, and I think it works really well. It hides the fact that it's moulded just from plastic, but it is actually quite a springy plastic in places, and that's good for protecting some of this really fine detail, because what you don't want is the kind of detail that the moment you touch it there's a shower of bits and you're thinking, well, why? But with this you can see there's quite a good deal of spring to some of the finer detail, so it's much less likely to be damaged. The coupling themselves, they've got these fixed NEM style pockets, but the actual couplings I can see there, don't want to pull too hard out. I've got to respect the fact that these are loaners, but they are pretty standard slimline tension lock couplings there, which push back into the socket. So these would be interchangeable with any other coupling that uses the NMRA standard of coupling. So you could fit KDs very easily to these. Indeed, you could also fit 3-link couplings. I'm just looking there. I think if it's not a metal fitting, it's certainly a very solid plastic fitting to be able to add 3-link couplings to the drawbar mechanism there. So you've got a great choice of different couplings to fit, but they come, as I said, as standard with this slimline tension lock. Now, one of the areas where you can see that Accurascale have gone over and above is they're actually fitted with fully sprung buffer heads. Now they seem to be turned, I suspect, turned brass metal buffer heads. They are pretty solid, and oops, I've just given that a good tug there. It has come out, but the spring has stayed put. So you can see the inside there of the buffer mechanism. I do hope this goes back. It's held on by like springy tails there. So we're going to get, yeah, it goes straight back in. But certainly if you want to use 3-link couplings, then that's something that I've seen people say it's actually quite a boon to shunting if you've got actual sprung buffer heads. So that is very much a plus. These handrails are pretty sturdily applied. Scale thickness, and because they're slightly springy, I could see there's an awful lot of scope here to be able to maybe heat these up very gently with a soldering iron and put some knocks and bends into some of these and really bring out the detail on this wagon to make it look, in a company with decent washover with weathering, you can really make these look the part. So really pleased with these. The wheels themselves, we've got very, very free-running metal wheels with 3-hole discs Although I would have preferred to see the actual flat faces brought to the outside of the wheels rather than the inside to give it a much more scale look to it. It's something that other manufacturers have gone down this route as well, so it's not just Accurascale. But if there's one criticism that I could level, maybe that is it, that the wheels would benefit from having the actual face brought more to the outside of the tread rather than the inside. But having this upside down, this is an area, it always amazes me, the manufacturers adding all this detail that you normally wouldn't see. So you can see underneath there, we've got this unloading mechanism, I guess, for the doors in this, the bottom mechanism. And look at the detail in that. There's a lot of separately applied parts gone down in there, and you'd normally never see it. It's almost worth having either a mirror or some kind of hole in your track that you can sort of go and sit underneath your layout and peer up and marvel at the amount of detail on that underframe. We really are seeing some amazing levels of detail coming through from the manufacturers. You can also see there that some of the, I'm guessing, would that be to do with the hopper door release? I'm not entirely sure of the workings of these wagons, but you can see that they're connected by wire across underneath the frame. So it doesn't really matter what angle you look at these wagons, the detail is perfect. So I'm really looking at a 9.9 out of 10 for these. Like I say, the only real detraction that I can find is the front disc faces of the wheels. But again, it's something that I don't feel is a major detraction. So I am actually really impressed with these. They do feel like a premium product, going above and beyond even the offerings from Hornby Bachmann. The actual liveries on all three of the wagons in each of these sets are different. So we've got different running numbers and also different lettering. And you can see here we've got appropriate details, like we've got the yellow triangle, which denotes, I think that's to do with the bottom unloading hoppers. I'm not entirely sure. I have seen those on MDO wagons as well. But one of the points that I've noticed is that if you look at one side of a wagon and then flip it over and look at the other, the actual tempo printed detailing is identical for each wagon. So you effectively have one side of a wagon reproduced. That's not really a big criticism. Pretty much all the manufacturers do that. And, in everyday usage, you're not going to see both sides of the wagon really at the same time. So it's not really a detraction at all. And if it, helps keep the cost down a little bit, then that's all well and good. And otherwise, it might be that people would get frustrated that they'd have to buy two sets to be able to see both sides of a wagon in the same train easily enough. Right, I'm going to put these three to one side. So we've got the tops lettered liveries of these wagons. So this represents sort of the final phase of them running on Britain's rails, on British Rail, before they passed into private ownership to be used as internal user wagons. So I'm going to put those to one side. And I'm going to get out the second set that I've been loaned. And again, same style of packaging. We've got the same history sheet, which gives you actually quite an in-depth history of these wagons. And, normally, you buy a wagon and it just comes in a box and that's that. But it's nice to get some of the background behind these wagons, because from a modeller's perspective, it really helps you decide if these are actually indispensable wagons for your layout. For these particular ones, they're actually quite a different livery. I'm just going to get all three of these out to show you. And of course, once they finished with British Rail, some of these wagons still had some life left in them. And the NCB, National Coal Board, were a big user of internal user wagons that they would use to move coal between different pits, coal washeries, coking plants, that kind of thing, on internal rail networks. So rather than buying new wagons, sometimes it made sense for them to just buy XBR wagons that still had a bit of life left in them. So So, as the packaging suggests, these are modelled on actual wagons and identities of wagons that were at Onllwyn coal concentration depot. And indeed, a little top fact for you, Onllwyn is also where, during the miners' strike, there was a concerted effort by LGB groups to raise awareness and raise money to help support some of the miners who were left without an income at the time. So just a little bit of a bonus fact there. But the livery on these is actually quite different. If I just bring one of these in, so we've got a completely different colour scheme. It's not just a re-lettering of that livery. We've got the entire wagon moulded in this sort of matte, almost like a dark battleship grey. It actually is reminding me of Humbrol number 27, if you're familiar with the Humbrol enamel paints. And actually, I think these wagons really suit this livery. When I was asked if I wanted to borrow the NCB set, I thought, yeah, it's fine, we'll compare one of the different liveries just to get a range. But when I see these in the flesh, I actually really like this livery. And there's a lot of NCB locomotives now on the market. We've got the Hornby Sentinel, we've got the Hatton's Andrew Barclays, and then we've also got the Hunslet Austerities from the likes of Hornby and DJ Models, and a number of other locomotives like Bachmann have brought out the 57XX Pannier in an NCB livery. So there's quite a range of locomotives to suit an NCB layout, and it's nice to see some of the wagons coming through too. One of the things actually that Zoe, the camera woman, has pointed out to me that has come across and struck her when she's looking at the screen of the zoomed in image is the actual builder's plates that are there on the sole bar. It's just, they actually look like they've been separately applied, just as the real works plates on wagons would be. It's not just a tampo printed detail. There is a raised plate on there, and we can't decide if they're separately applied or part of the moulding, but certainly whichever method that Accurascale has used, they do look like a separately applied works plate. So again, nothing much to detract from these wagons. They have the same construction as the BR liveried ones, but all of the parts are correctly finished in the appropriate livery. And actually these wagons suit this livery more in terms of looking good without a weathering, but certainly they are a good starting point to weather them up. But you know, with a wagon this fine, it almost seems sacrilege to go for weathering. But certainly, again, a good solid 9.9 out of 10. These have become very quickly some of my favourite wagons. You know, I hope I'm not coming across as gushing, but these are an outstanding model. Yes, they are a little bit more expensive than you might expect from the likes of Hornby and Bachmann, but it's clear when you see the model in the flesh that Accurascale have gone above and beyond with the level and attention to detail. And quite honestly, for the amount of work that's gone into making these and making them nearly perfect, I think actually the price is quite inexpensive when you consider all of that. Well, I hope that's been really informative to you. Don't forget to like this video, it's really important, and share it too. Don't forget to let other people know about some of the videos that we've got going on here. And if you've not already done so, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell, and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But until next time, thanks again for watching. It's been great to have your company, and I hope to have you here again next time. Until then, take really good care of yourself. Bye for now. Today's video has been brought to you in part thanks to the generous donation of my fans on Patreon. And an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Michael Churchwood, Bob Threeton, Alec Ralph, Anthony Hunt, William Wade, Wayne Johns, Offshore Allen, and oorail.co.uk. If you'd like to help support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Jennifer Kirk. Thank you. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knob T Mouse. Thanks, and catch you later.